In today's video, I'm bringing you into my home because I want to talk to you about my honest opinion about this Hydro Advanced Growing Tent. Now, this is not a promotional video. It's not a sponsored video. I actually purchased this advanced growing tent to overwinter a lot of the cuttings that I had propagated from my Portland home, which was my snow sickle oak leaf hydrangea, my ruby slipper oak leaf hydrangea, and my macrophilia. Now, when I propagated them in a plastic container, and I used that as a humidity dome, and that worked out beautifully. But because they were still too young to plant in the ground over the fall, I decided to go ahead and purchase this and overwinter all of my plants in here. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you of what I wish I knew before I purchased this. Was it worth purchasing this, and would I overwinter in here again? And then I'm going to take you over to my kitchen counter, and I'm going to repot a lot of those cuttings again because there were some issues, and I'm going to go over what those issues were. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Juanita. I'm with Jscursions. And I really hope everybody enjoys this video today because you're interested in purchasing a Hydro Advanced growing tent. This will give you an idea of whether it's worth it or not. So I still have 3 pinnacle hydrangeas that I propagated in water that are growing in here. And I haven't looked at them in a couple days because I took all my cuttings to put them on the windowsill because, in my opinion, they were not doing very well in here. Now, I think the reason why they weren't doing very well in here was because we're in the middle of winter and we have the heat on during the day. At the same time, I have a light that's keeping my plants warm, trying to grow them, right? So I think because this is inside my home, it contributed to some of the issues that I will be talking to you about why some of my hydrangeas didn't make it. Now, I have 3 pinnacle hydrangeas, like I mentioned, and these are doing fine in here. And my other cuttings were kind of doing fine, but because I had them up on the top shelf and I had this at a higher setting, this was getting way too hot that it was just drying my plants. It was just drying the soil way too fast. And so I set this in the lowest setting. And there are other wattage that you can buy, and I think that would have been a better choice than purchasing this one. But at the same time, I don't think that this was a bad investment either, because I can actually put my hand underneath it in its lowest setting, and I feel heat, but I don't feel that it's that hot. I mean, I'm touching it and it's not hot. However, it's getting a lot of light from this reflective material, and so it's putting out quite a heat when you have it completely covered. Now, with the heat in the house, and then you have the heat in here, I think that was just a little bit too much. So, in my honest opinion, would I put this in my house again? No. I would put this either in a garage or underneath a covered structure. And then I think this would perform much better than it did in here. Now at night we turn off the heat, the lamp goes off during the night. The lamp is only on for probably 6 hours during the day, and then it's on a automatic shut off, and so there's no light going on here. But because of all that heat, it was just drying my soil way too fast, and so it's creating issues. And my soil being in a terracotta container also, I think, contributed to that issue as well. Because when I look at these pinnacle hydrangeas that I still have in here, when I touch the soil on these plastic containers, my soil is still moist to the touch. When I look at this one in a terracotta, the soil is bone dry. Now, this is still doing well because I'm just keeping an eye on it, a closer eye on it, I should say, than I did before. And so these are all doing well. They do have some issues, and we'll touch up on those a little later. But in my opinion about whether this is worth overwintering plants, I think it is. I just would overwinter them in plastic containers rather than in terracotta containers. I would also add a little fan in here because as your cuttings are growing, they really need some kind of wind to make their structure a lot stronger and not so weak. And so that would be a really good idea, and that's easy to install with having these windows and stuff. I think this would also be great for starting seeds and also for growing microgreens. I will test those out and then let you know in a later video on how well that goes. Now, the only thing that I wish I knew before I ever put a big expense on purchasing this. I mean, it's not really that big, it's 160 bucks, but what I wish I knew before I purchased this is would the humidity dome have worked just as well over the winter months, because it was in plastic and the light, whatever light it got during the day, would still filter and protect those. I won't know the answer to that, but I wish I knew that before I actually purchased this, to give that a shot before investing in this. And but otherwise, is it worth it? I think it is. The only thing that I would change if I was to do it over again is that maybe I would get just a little bit less wattage as far as the light, because I had to turn this down to the lowest setting because it was really drying the soil on my plants way too fast. I mean, I was watering practically every day. And part of it is the issue with the soil that we're going to talk about. But if you have any questions on this, let me know on the comments below. And if you have one of these, let me know what your thoughts are on it, what your experience is, and you know what you have grown in it, and yeah. So okay, let's go into the kitchen. Now, I did end up losing like probably about 3 of them, and a lot of it had to do, again, because I planted them in this terracotta containers, and I'm gonna go ahead and use them again, but I think the soil itself, it didn't have enough amendments in it, like perlite and vermiculite, or anything in there to retain moisture. Here is my ruby slipper, and look at how well this is doing. This is doing fantastic. Now, it lost all its old foliage, which is fine, and it does have some nodes here that could possibly bring out some new shoots. Especially if I was to clip this, it would force new shoots to come out through those nodes. Now, this is kind of what I was talking about, that if you don't have a fan going, your new starts, the main stalk of it will get weak. When you have airflow, it forces this to go back and forth, you know, from the airflow, and it just makes it stronger. So this looks really healthy, but it could be stronger. And then here are 2, and I'm not sure what these ones are. If they could be the snow sickle, or they could be the microphilia. And these ones here are just not doing well. However, there is a little bit of growth down here that could possibly still happen. I don't know how well you can see that where my fingers are. I'm not giving up on this. I'm going to go ahead and repot it. But if you can see, this soil just is not good soil. Same thing here. And I watered this, and here's 3 hours later, and the soil's dry again. So it's not retaining any moisture. And this has some possibilities, so I'm not giving up on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue to see if I can't make that work. And then I have this one here, which this is all new foliage here. It's got new foliage. I don't know how well you can see this. I've got a couple of new growth down here. So this will probably do fine once I repot it. And then this one here is a snow sickle. And the snow sickle ones are the ones that I really want to work out. And this one here, this one is the old leaf, but it does have promise. It has some new growth coming out, new leaves here. So I'm going to guess that that might be doing just fine, especially once I repot it. So we'll see. The one that surprised me a lot was the broomstruck of how well this is doing. And it does have a little bit of issues on the leaves, which tells me that it's either too much nitrogen, or it could possibly be that it's just not getting enough water. And I did water this earlier, and already it's drying up. So yeah, but this has a lot of new growth. I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but there's some nodes right here that are trying to put out some new shoots, as well as over here, and then at the very top. But the leaves overall are doing well, and these are all new leaves. And then this one here has some promise. I mean, I don't know how well you can see that, but this one here, I actually trimmed down, and it has a little bit of greenery, so it's quite alive. It's just a matter of whether these were just buried too far down and not getting enough light to actually do something. And then as far as my 3 pinnacle hydrangeas here, these ones have a lot of new starts, as you can see down below. And this is the old leaves. You can see the new growth there. And I could actually literally just cut it up to here, and it would just force these other ones to shoot out. But I have new growth coming in between the leaf over here and over here. So these leaves could actually be removed, and it would still be just fine. This one again, soil is super dry, and it is affecting even the new foliage that's coming out beneath. But this one also has new starts in between. I don't know how well you can see that, but it has some new starts there and also at the very top. And then this one, same thing. It's got some new starts down here, and on this note, it looks like there might be something trying to happen here. There's new foliage coming out the very top, and I don't see any in between the leaves. So they're showing promise anyway. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repot them as quickly as possible. I already amended my soil. I added some perlite, some vermiculite, and also some root starting, which is this mycose. This is an organic root enhancer, so I'm hoping that this will help, as well as I added vermiculite to it, and then I also put a little bit of continuous release plant food. And so all this has all the proper amendments. It even has some coconut coir in here, and so this will retain the moisture. Now, I do have it a little bit wetter than I should normally, or would normally have it. As you can see, there's a little bit of water dripping. You really don't want your soil that wet, but because I'm not going to be watering them after I repot them, this is going to be fine. I'm just going to toss all this soil in here, take each one and remove it. Now this soil, even though I mentioned that it's not good soil, doesn't mean that I would throw it away necessarily. I would just add it to some other soil and add some amendments to it, and it would be just fine. It just wasn't really good for, new cuttings. And look, I've got another growth right here. Do you see that? And this is rooting, just fine. So, nice strong root system. So here's what's happening. As it turns out, what the problem is with a lot of these that I've been cleaning out, this one here had a lot of perlite, and I had propagated this in perlite, and I didn't clean off all that perlite before potting it, and so it caused some issues with the growth on it. And this one here, as well as this one and this one here, propagated in perlite. And do you see all that perlite? This perlite is really good for drainage, but when it's around the roots like this, at this capacity, it's drying the roots. And so it's causing all the moisture around the soil, around this root ball, to just completely drain off and not allow this to get the proper moisture. And so I have to remove all this. I mean, the roots are fine, but it's just too much perlite, and it's causing some growth issues. So yeah, I'm gonna wash that off. Okay, so now that I've freed it from all that perlite, the roots look pretty healthy. They're really nice, and they have good color. So what I would take away from this is, if you're gonna propagate in perlite as well as vermiculite, before potting it into soil, make sure that it is free from all that perlite as well as vermiculite. And I do see a little bit of growth on the bottom, so I think this has a fighting chance. Now you may ask, well, shouldn't you have vermiculite and perlite into your soil? Yes, perlite is basically put into soil for just to retain moisture in that soil a little bit longer than it would otherwise. And the perlite is really good for drainage and airflow, and so which works great, but having it saturated around a plant and root ball is not a good thing. So I learned a new thing. So I know that if I propagate again in either mediums, that I definitely will take that into account and make sure that I free it from either mediums before potting it up. Yeah, and may just survive. Okay, and then last is this one. This one probably doesn't even need to be repotted, but what the heck, I'm doing them all, so why not? And of course, the three pinnacles, this one, and that one again, this ones were propagated in water. And so these ones have performed extremely well for me, and very quick propagation doing it in water. Okay. Oh, I still have this one to do. Let me get this one. Okay, let's see what's going on with this one. Ooh, new growth coming in on the bottom. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, a lot of new growth. Look at that. New growth here, new growth here. This one's just doing fantastic, so not going to mess too much with it. But this one was also grown in perlite, which actually has quite a bit. Now, broomstick hydrangeas, they actually like a lot more moisture than the pinnacle hydrangeas or the oak leaf hydrangeas. They really do like a lot more moisture, but I'm going to go ahead and wash that off, and that's probably why this is doing really well, because it is getting that added moisture from the vermiculite. But I'm going to wash that off as much as possible. Yeah, this one was actually, look at that growth. And this was actually grown in both vermiculite and perlite. The roots are doing fantastic, but I'm surprised that it wasn't rotting, because it did have a lot of vermiculite. But again, this broomstick macrophilia actually likes a little bit more even moisture, and so it was probably loving that additional moisture. Okay, so I'm completely done, and I am really amazed of what I discovered and why these ones are not performing very well. And a lot of that is because they were actually propagated in vermiculite as well as perlite. And so this is where the issue really lied with this. And so I cleaned them up, took all the vermiculite away from the root system. I also removed all the perlite out of it, gave it new soil, and so now these have a fighting chance. So I'm going to put these back in the humidity dome, and then these ones here I'm actually going to put in my garage, because they're ready. They're ready to be put in a little bit cooler climate and let the sun shine upon them. And the garage does have a window, and so light does get in there. So these are going to be just perfectly fine for the next month until we get really warm weather, and then these can be actually put into the greenhouse, and then later on put into the soil out in my garden. So I'm excited about that. Now, again, I can remove, in fact, I am going to remove some of these leaves. So I'm going to do that right now. Because they're not necessary. This one here, yeah, take them off. new growth will come. This one, same thing. Again, these three are pinnacle hydrangeas. They're a lot tougher than, say, the macrophilia, even though that one's performing really well. In fact, this one here, I'm actually going to top right above the node. Yeah, so these ones can go in the garage. They'll do fine. And these ones here I'm going to put back in the humidity dome. And, or actually not in the humidity dome. I'm actually going to put them on my windowsill and see how well they perform there. So I will show you exactly where I'm putting these in just a few minutes. Okay, so this is where I'm putting them. This garage door has windows, and this area right here gets plenty of light. These are stuff that I overwintered in here, and they are all doing very well. Could use a little bit of water, looks like. Let me just go through these really quick. This is goldenrod. This is a fuchsia, Transcentia fuchsia. This one here is a red currants, an euphorbia. Don't know exactly what this is. I can't remember. It was something that I just took out. I want to say it's more goldenrod. And I'm pretty sure it is. And then over here, this is the one that I took out from my front garden. I'll put the name that comes up in the identifier, but I'm not really sure that that's what that is, but it's doing fine in here. And then these are just new plants, which is some ferns over here. This one here is called, you could probably see what that is right there. It's a jewel chain fern. I've got two of them right here, and then I have over on this side, I believe this is like an Alaskan fern. And these are new from a nursery. And then this one here, this will grow really tall and they'll have beautiful yellow flowers. I have another one in my garden. This one here is and I can't enunciate the word. I'm probably going to butcher it. So here's what that one is. So this one will get fairly large. This one will get about up to 48 inches in width and then about up to 36 inches in height. So yeah, all these are going to go into my shade garden. And then now all of my new pinnacle hydrangeas and macrophilias over here. And this is going to do just fine. I have no problem with keeping them in here. And so right here is where I'm going to put these ones, because this will get some morning sun and afternoon shade, and that is exactly what these ones require. And it'll give me an area where I can walk by and water them as needed, as well as just seeing how they perform or if I need to toss them. I will update you on those though. Okay guys, that's going to do it for me. As far as this advanced grow tent, I will be keeping it. I think that this was performing as it should have, and that's my overall consensus of this whole, after viewing and looking at each individual root of all my plants, I did discover that a lot of the issues with them drying out was because they were just saturated with either perlite around the roots or vermiculite kind of rotting the roots. And so because of that, I think this performed like it should have. Now it did probably dry the soil a little bit more. You may need to kind of monitor it a little bit more if you get one, and just make sure that the soil is kept moist. But I think it would be a great way to start seeds in the winter months for those more hardier plants, and also probably just to house other plants. But yeah, I still love it. I think there's no regrets, but we'll have use for it down the road. And if nothing else, I may end up doing a giveaway. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Love you, and I'll see you guys in the next one.